Please mute everybody.
Session is started. Great. Okay, welcome back to the session 2 of the design education panel. And before I think all of us know the format, so I'll not spend more time. Let us go into the poll immediately for the 3 topics that we'll be discussing. So can we have the first question? Second. So let's vote for the design fees.
I think the screen has not changed yet.
So can you see the first poll question?
Yeah, the fees has been finished. Yeah,
okay. So let's go to the next question. We have the requirements that the AICT says about PhD, whether we want practitioners to teach because they are kind of getting the real knowledge that is required, or maybe we don't know what's the right way forward. So let's look at the second question. I hope everybody has voted for this. So let's go to the next question. Thanks for everyone's patience. So let's do the third one. It's again on PhDs, but it's more about the topic of the PhDs or the content of the PhDs. Do you want to make it very research focused? It's like very academic in nature, or you want to look at a very applied PhDs and how can we create those applied PhDs? Or maybe we don't know. We're kind of undecided on it. Okay, great. Let's stop the poll and let's straight away get into the third topic. Geeta, over to you.
Yeah. So I think that the questions have already given us an indication of where we are going in this session, where we're looking at actually the delivery of the PhDs and our regulators. So the first panel will be Professor Amrish Chakrabarty and Raman Saxena, and they're going to be talking about whether we do PhDs for research or whether we do it for impact. Is there going to be an impact from the study that is going to actually change and add value, or are we going to do it to get a qualification in order to make you a teacher or a professor in a design school? Over to you, Amrish and Raman.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think our every PhD, not only in design, any area, is about creating knowledge, right? And that knowledge will eventually have an impact. That impact can be either impacting practice or impacting education or impacting academics itself, right? So as long as it fits in any of those and it produces original knowledge that is substantial, then it is a PhD. So I think that's what we need to look at. Now, you specifically look at design research or research into design. Our kind of knowledge is going to be either understanding how design occurs and how the enablers of design relate to design, or it's going to be on improving those. So we can have certain ones that are primarily descriptive or explanatory in nature. Others are going to be more prescriptive and evaluative in nature. But fundamentally, there is no distinction between PhD in design and PhD in any other discipline. It is its eventual. It is about impact, but impact can be in academia, practice, or education, and it can be immediate or it can be longer term.
Thank, thank you.
I'm less than 1.5 minutes.
Thank you.
Great.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Raman.
Yeah. So I think I agree with the initial point that the intent is, of course, knowledge. But the problem is that, the way the PhD is being now seen by the industry, especially the design institution, and making it like a compulsory to come and teach design. So I think there comes the problem. And I feel, I'll try to put 3 points across which can, guide you looking at that, why the PhD is more becoming a paper formality. The first, that since it is become a eligibility to teach in an institution, so a lot of people are actually started taking it up, whether they are interested or not. So that is pushing people. And I think when you are doing something because of some push, I think you are not really motivated. So I think that is the first sufferer in terms of the quality of PhD which is coming. So the aim of PhD or a research is transferred into aim of completing it and completing it as fast as possible, so that you can reserve your place in academia. The second I feel is because unfortunately design is becoming a like software. So design PhD has become a shortcut for people to complete PhD, even if you have not studied design in your undergrad and postgrad education. Okay, so you can see a lot of graduates coming as undertaking design PhD and started going teaching in a design institution, especially a lot to worry about design, private school where your time is calculated in terms of minutes. So you are forced to teach as many subjects you can, and you end up teaching without learning design process. You end up teaching design process kind. So that's where you actually become like, rather than helping design knowledge, you actually destroying that. And the third thing is, I feel design is a very different profession. So it is very difficult to compare these two sciences like human science and all. So I think the way we are evaluating PhD in terms of citation and all, I think it should change, and we should have actually different criteria to evaluate PhD, which should be more from the perspective how much social impact or the how much knowledge impact in terms of design industry is making. So I think this is what my point is regarding that.
Thank you. So now, would you both like to converse your points with each other? Amrit
Maybe
and
I can just
Raman.
say a few words. Okay,
But
important points.
more to respond. Let's have the interaction.
Yeah, interaction. So
Yeah.
I'm not responding, but I'm reflecting on the point that Raman had made.
Yeah.
The fact that we are asking everybody to have a PhD, of course, is producing a certain number of PhDs that are not up to the mark and so on. But once again, this is not specific to design. Everybody is asked to do a PhD for becoming an academic, and therefore, there are going to be young PhDs. I think this is part of life. Second point is that uh, it is important to have the flexibility of the kind of PhD that we would consider design PhD. It's not only about having immediate impact. There are PhDs where you are going to reflect the philosophy of design, and that is something that is going to have a longer term impact, just like there are sciences that have longer impact than others that are more applied research. So we don't have to fixate ourselves to only applied research. And the third point is that it is important, perhaps there are different kinds of educational institutions, and for some it may be okay to have only practitioners to teach. But once again, if you teach only by practitioners, you get stuck to what is current knowledge, and you don't envision what the future knowledge might be. So it is important to have those who have had the experience of creating knowledge, in order to, because that's one of the major parts of an educational institution, creation of knowledge. And if they have not been trained at creating knowledge, they will be not so good at being teachers for creating knowledge. That's the only submission that I have in this respect. Thank you.
Would you like to
Thanks.
respond to
Yeah.
that?
So I think, Professor Amrish, the point what I'm trying to say here is like I personally feel that it's not important to be a PhD to teach, because when I entered into academics in 2013 and started teaching at IIT Kanpur, I was not a PhD and I was nervous because I had all the professor with PhD background and I really felt I don't know if I will succeed as a teacher there. But my first course got the best feedback from the student, and I think it was because of the connect I had with her, because I came from the industry, and the relation I was able to build with between knowledge and that actually how the knowledge will be applied. I think that's made that the positive impact of that. And when I now have completed my PhD and continue my academic this engagement with IMB, then IIT Kanpur, now Triple IT, which where I'm not teaching design people. I feel nothing has changed in terms of my quality of teaching just because of PhD. So I think I personally feel that there is maybe we are actually pushing unnecessarily about this having PhD, and even if we were pushing, then we should try to look at practice-based PhD rather than the PhD which we are looking in, like cognitive sciences or human sciences, etc. So this is what I feel.
Anybody else from the panels who would like to add or build on these arguments? Would
I
like
could
to.
add a I could add a point. There was a conference, British Council and NID conference, where they specifically spoke about PhDs, and they said there was a research going on which said that.
Go ahead, Ramnik.
Okay, so they said that there's a research going on which says that PhD do not really impact you as a teacher. It is a separate area which takes you deeper into studying a subject deeper, but not really impacting you as a teacher. So just wanted to bring that up. Maybe
Yeah,
we
and
could.
I think that's a useful point, Ramnik,
Yeah,
and we
just to
can build
add,
on it in your session next.
yeah, just
Yeah,
just to add here.
I would like to disagree with that actually, because it very deeply impacts you as a teacher. It very deeply impacts again, it depends on what the institution is trying to do. If one of the goals of the institution is to create knowledge, then those who have created knowledge would find it easier to train other people in how to create new knowledge. And that is, I myself, I mean, my experience, Raman, is very different from that of yours, that my PhD experience had dramatically changed the way I would teach a student, and I would open up that student in possibilities of the future in terms of creating new knowledge. But it may be that it varies from one specific subdiscipline to another, and for how applied or how basic a particular area is. But I strongly believe that design also has a basic areas and also applied areas. So if we only syllogize PhD to applied areas, we lose out on creating the rubric, the framework within which the applied areas can thrive. Just like there is theoretical physics and applied physics, there should be theoretical PhD design and applied design, and both of them are important. That's all.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Okay.
Very good
Okay.
point. Thank you very much. So, have we got any other questions or anybody want to add before we? Yes, Raman.
I just want to add, like, I agree quite a bit with Professor, Amresh, but I think we have to look at from the perspective of, what to say, if you are looking for the research rigor, I think definitely PhD provide you the training to be patient and also more scientific. And I think when you look at research as a knowledge base, and I agree in an institution both are required. So definitely PhD has prepared me for that. So now I'm more equipped to do scientific research, but I still feel that maybe the when I go into the class versus I go into the cognition and perception lab, my roles are very different. So there I play a role of a researcher, and in the class I play a role of a faculty. So I think I feel that both are required, but have a different places, to use it. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Each of them.
Yogesh, with your permission, I will go to Bala and Anuba because it's connected to the same topic.
Yes.
It's PhD. So rather than sort of jump to Manisha and Ramnik, I will ask Bala and Anuba because here we are talking about a point that came up in this presentation where Raman was talking about the fact that you need a PhD to make you eligible today to teach detracts. His point was that it detracts from value. So over to you, Bala, and to Anuba. And your topic is there an alternative? And what happens to uh, people who are unschooled? I won't call them unqualified. I find the word qualified problematic. So whether it's somebody who's schooled in a certain doctrine and way of thinking, or somebody who's more intuitive and unschooled, what is the position that you both would like to take on faculty eligibility and qualification to be a design educator? Over to you.
Thanks, Gita, and thanks, PDF, for having me here. I'll start, Anuba.
Sure.
Yeah. So, a lot of what I thought of saying has already been told by Raman, but I'll keep at it and see if it's making an impact. I believe design is not a subject to be taught, it is to be mentored. Design faculties work on the students for an hands-on and a minds-on experience. You need empathy. You need to lead. You need to show and tell. You need to facilitate. You need to help discover attributes and characteristics. You need to connect. You need to critique. You need to collaborate. You need to evaluate. You help learning by doing. You need to inspire. What does a PhD bring to the table? Researching on any topic, big or small. Do deep diving into a subject. Learning to specialize to know more and more about less and less, till you know everything about nothing. Do your research on your own work, on your own. Work in a silo. Arm yourself with tools and techniques of research. Exams. Does anyone see the irony? Why are PhDs an automatic choice for teaching? Since universities have faculty to teach course and research to publish papers in prestigious journals, it has found it important to hire PhDs as faculty. Makes sense in the sciences and the liberal arts art courses. But why design? A practicing professional, a fresh graduate, an intricate weaver, a performing artisan, an experienced craftsman, all these can mentor a student of design and bring out better results from the students. So this is my stand. Anuba, over to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Quite on time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Bala. So I will be discuss this, Bala, briefly. So while I'm not here holding a candle for PhD, I do want to talk about what are the qualifications or what are the entry points that one should have for faculty members or young faculty members per se, joining a design school. So I agree with the Bala that design perhaps cannot be taught, but I also go back to the point that Geeta made earlier that there's a problem of scale. The apprenticeship model, which is the mentoring model, it works with as the term that Geeta used, the boutique numbers. So if you're trying to scale it up, it's problematic. You cannot have that one-on-one osmotic mentoring kind of a model. So that said, I see a lot of young people going into design education these days, and that's not because they're driven by passion. They're driven to it as a profession. And why are they driven to it as a profession is because the profession is not the industry or the market is not paying them as well, as much. I know that a starting salary for a young assistant professor can be 45,000 rupees because that's what the minimum UGC mandate is in any self-respecting design school or university, which is at least, at least one third more than what they would get if they join a studio. So the problem there becomes as to why are people getting into teaching? Are they getting into teaching or mentoring or whatever you want to call it, people because they care about the design pedagogy or the design profession or anything, or because they're simply trying to make a livelihood for themselves, which is also fine. I mean, there are people who can choose academics to be their livelihood, but is that the correct way to do it? And the point that Ramneek made was something that I also wanted to bring up, that there is a system of a PhD may not necessarily equip you to teach. Uh, and Bala, with your permission, I am using the word teach. But perhaps there are different kind of methodologies, and I know that UK has it. It has this certification for higher education, which is essentially a methodology to teach in higher education institutes. So while PhD may not be the answer, but having people foray or segue into academics simply because that is a better paying
alternative is something that I have a lot of problem with. I'll end this here.
Thank you. Now you both have time to. This is not a debate.
Yeah.
It's not about rebutting each other or agreeing with each other. It's a conversation. So using the thing of conversation, you can just build on whatever you were going to say, or build on what somebody else is going to say, or add to your thinking. You get another minute each.
So I just wanted to add. Sorry, Bal. Okay,
No,
go on.
go on, please.
I just wanted to very quickly say that there are 3 or 4 disciplines which are classified as professions, and these are law, medicine, accountancy, and well, architecture, and I'm clubbing design into it. And these are the only 4 professions which are sort of licensed. Well, design is not, but architecture is. So the thing is that when you're going into those kinds of, so I will just take a parallel, say, with the medical institutions. Medical institutes work as teaching hospitals. So perhaps it's time to come. I mean, I do not kind of agree when you say that practice as projects that institutions do. No, those projects are not industry. That is not market. That's not what's happening. All right. That's all right. They're mostly institutional. They're mostly government led, but those are projects. That's not work. So, but instead of like having design schools, can we have design studios, which are like teaching hospitals? So the scale is that it's not a small studio which is also giving you a degree on the side, but where you do a learning by doing kind of a situation, quite like the medicine field. I mean, that's a different way of looking at how the field can be looked at, and then that conundrum of whether it's theory, whether it's practice, whether it's generalization, whether it's skill, whether the teachers need to have a PhD or they need to be practitioners, can all get us sorted out to a large extent.
And Bala, over to you.
I agree with some parts of what you just said, but the question is, PhD as a qualification for teaching is something which I'm not very happy about, in the sense that PhD doesn't train you to be a teacher; it trains you to be a researcher, and that's exactly where the problem is. In the sense, you can't use PhD as a pre-qualification for teaching. You can say it for researching, yes, but not for teaching. That's about all I have to add.
Yeah, I agree completely. That is exactly what I'm saying, that PhD is not a qualification for teaching. But what is the qualification for teaching, so that we can have people who actually are equipped to teach large numbers of design students?
Well, Jacob has put a question up on the thing. Would you like to put that, bring him in to ask that question, Yogesh? Jacob Matthew is. Jacob, are you coming on? Yeah.
He needs to raise his hand.
He has to raise his hand.
Jacob, please raise your hand.
Yeah. Yeah, you are on stage, Jacob.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know Airmeet could do this. Wow. I think my point was that can it be this lack of research in design schools really because of the way the profession is practiced? Because we seem to be looking into the future, while research to a large extent looks at the past. So that's just a question that I have. And perhaps that's why it is more popular in management schools like Rotman and so on, which have been doing research in this area, and not so much in design schools themselves.
That's a point, Jacob. Actually, it's a point. Yeah.
But I don't completely agree. I don't think that the PhD research always looks at the past. There are some, and may not be, I mean, I can give some examples from the field of design, but alternately also the PhD research, if you have to talk of research through a PhD route, they can look at the future as well. That still, however, doesn't answer the original question, whether it's a qualification which should be needed to teach in any school, forget a design school. I mean, I would open the board to say, I don't see the point of having a PhD education to teach even in an engineering school. I mean, if the point be that. If the point is, the whole notion of mixing PhD with the teaching as a base qualification is problematic.
Yeah, exactly.
I will just
thank you.
I'll just butt in. I think, Geeta, we should move to the last topic.
Yes.
Because
so we'll move into the
we
last.
have a hard stop in another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
And I would like to summarize a little bit at the end. So give me some.
Yeah.
Some
So I think we should go to the next one.
Yeah. So what is the notion of the business modeling of education? Is it about paying high-end fees and making money, profit, or is it about advancement of the discipline? And what does affordability actually mean in this context? So quite a challenging question. And for that, we have Manisha Mohan and Ramneet Kaur. Over to you. And I'm sorry, when you come at the end, you always have to come to a hard stop. So I apologize before we begin. Go ahead with your 2 minutes. Go
Sorry
ahead,
for that.
Manisha.
Sure. Thank you so much, Geeta. And I think it's a great format for a panel discussion. I've been enjoying the discussion so far. Thanks to PDF, Yogesh, and Geeta for organizing it so well. This topic is a favorite of mine, but I promise to be very brief because I know we've reached the end of the session. I would tread on the path of moderation. I feel that design education should be affordable because we need a lot more designers in the country than we have. I know there are a lot of design schools mushrooming around, but we still need a lot of good designers to really take a lot of the initiatives forward which the country needs, which the world needs. So it should be affordable. And design is all about value creation. So I would say there needs to be value for each of the stakeholders, whether it is students, whether it's parents, or the industry, or the nation at large. There needs to be some value in it, and it has to be a self sustaining model. So I'm not saying that one shouldn't charge fees. There should be fees, but they should be within reasonableness. There should be fees to support research. There should be fees that and funding that would support infrastructure, and also maybe giving some sort of international and industry exposure to the students to ensure that they get a holistic education, to support the teachers also. So there should be enough funds to support all this, and design schools should be self-sustainable in that sense. But they should be reasonable because individual designers should be able to afford it. Parents should not feel that it's out of reach and they don't get an ROI. Even now, parents do think about ROI, and that's a discussion I have with a lot of parents because they want to know how much their child is going to earn after 4 years of design education. That's always a question I'm answering for parents. And if it's too expensive for them and at the end of it they can't really afford it, then I don't think, I feel it defeats the purpose. So over to you, Ramnik.
Thanks, Manisha. I would like to start my discussion with 5 major research findings before I go on to project what my dream school would be. So there are mega trends which are sweeping the world across, whether it is rapid advancement in technology, whether it's shift in global economic power from developed to developing countries. There's resource scarcity and climate change. There's rapid urbanization, and now also importance about the healthcare. Going on to the next, which is about the creative economy, which was not recognized earlier, but now there's importance that's been given to the creative economy, which is being recognized. And in November 2020, the UN passed a resolution to announce that it was making 2021 as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. I think these are initiatives that are bringing creative economy to the forefront. We also know that there have been no research reports, there have been no market studies about the service sector, but that's the area which is now coming up. In terms of where the learning is heading, the Future of Learning report shows that COVID-19 pandemic has increased the focus on career transition and upskilling. There are no jobs for life, and that's what research has been predicting for some time. They say that it's now the focus should be on lifelong learning because we don't know what are the jobs that are going to be there for the next 5 or 10 years, and people need to be adaptive and resilient and have the ability to learn and change their career. In terms of job, when we look at the future of work, there are 9% of new jobs that don't even exist today. This is what I'm quoting from the Ernst& Young report. And there are 37% of jobs with radically changed skill set. Also, there are more points, and because I'm being shown, so I'm quickly moving on to the next point, which is really talking about the facts. And basis this, basically what I wanted to say was that design will never be able to come to the forefront as an established and recognized profession and career at par with other referred fields perceived as more secure and steady if we do not change or look at a new model for education. The facts that I wanted to bring in, the 7 hardcore facts, that is that designers tend to not have a clear business and financial sense, not a clear strategy for the same. They're not being taught about it. Design education presently is conducted in isolation from other related subjects, which is economics, anthropology, ecological, social, economical, political environment, where design actually takes place. So that's something that we need to look at. And designers tend to be aloof from the market and the clients and in a different world, which makes them come across as more of artists and less of solution providers for the market. A large part of design education needs to change. And also, what we're seeing is that none of our designers are playing a lead role in the market at the C level, basically as CEOs or COOs. And that's where we want to place the designers. And nowadays, also because design thinking is being introduced everywhere, whether it is engineering, management, and other professions, and it's it is becoming more like a general knowledge item or simply a fad rather than a specialized profession. So that's something that we need to really look at and bring design again in the forefront. Race for technology. There are multiple design institutes coming up. There's huge gap between educators and practitioners. So what I want to say is that in order to fulfill all these motives, the design education infrastructure has to be able to not only sustain itself, but also raise the bar of design profession to match with the active forces of market and the environment in which it operates. Design should not merely be an underground profession providing high-end solutions which do not get their due value. With a motive to advance the discipline of design, the new design school must be not only a center of excellence, but also an elite and aspirational platform with profitable business model. Whatever sense of money that we need to give to our students, we should show that in the design institutes as well.
We
And
have
that's
4 minutes left.
Yeah,
quickly,
And Geeta
so
would like to
and I
summarize
would
as
like
well.
to have those 4 minutes
so
to
looking at
summarize.
making them stand at par with IIMs, ISP, Stanford, and Harvards of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramnik.
Thanks a lot.
I
I
think
think
that we will.
I would personally say sorry to the last panelists because we had to kind of rush. Uh, but I think I will give Geeta the chance to summarize because the next session starts at 5 and that's like the launch of the PDF. So I think we will have to
Have
have
to
another.
leave, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not going to summarize because I think it was very clear that everybody disagreed with the PhD as a qualification for teaching, and that there was a lot of discomfort with this whole idea. But I'm going to talk a little bit for myself, but base it on the points that the 6 points that we were given. I think that we all know that we've been living in a world that resembles a dystopian novel and a world that could only be imagined as a harrowing world of fiction. I'm reading from um, a book by Henry Giro, so it's not my words. And so we are told over the last few years, as you know, not to get close to one another, that we've been told that door handles are dangerous, and we know that our streets are empty and businesses are shuttered. We know that death tolls have been climbing, and that we also know as of today that borders are back with a vengeance, and fear and scarcity have become a norm. So when we live in this kind of dystopic world and we're talking about design education for the future, I don't think my arguments are focused on whether we want people to have foundational thinking or whether we need to be ready to go and develop a new product. I think that we do need to find within ourselves as a design community the collective energy to address the real problems people are encountering. And for this, it means that we have to make sure that we are passionate, emotional, and we find new forms of understanding. And that it doesn't matter whether it's a PhD or not, but we have to understand that we have to take knowledge, democratization of knowledge, and tie it to a kind of action, informed action. That's the impact. And that if and today whatever we do, whichever subject we deal with, whether it's verticals or new verticals or hybrid or thalis, they must understand and address the underlying causes. I feel very strongly about this personally, of poverty, class domination, environmental destruction, and today resurgent racism. Amartya Sen, I'm quoting, said we need to think big about society. And in spite of the overwhelming nature of the crisis, we are still need to think, as Neelam and others put together, we have to think about being beyond being isolated, beyond being overwhelmed, and beyond being powerless. And if this is the magnitude of this crisis, how can we as design educators rethink what the society we want to live in? What is the future we want to inhabit? What we do not want to do is to go back to a system that equates democracy with capitalism. And that this comes to the last one. The education, I do not think, can become a capitalist profit-making business, because then it has no thing to deal with inequity. Coming to the last point that I am quoting now, I'm looking at the work of Otto Schama at MIT, whom I've worked with quite a lot. And in leadership, he says that at a time of transition that we are now, we have to let go of old ways. So this is why I critique this need for foundational thinking. I critique the need for being rigorous to be able to make a product on demand for a consumer market. I don't think these are the capabilities of tomorrow. I think leaders, we have to transform ourselves, let go of old ways, and allow new ways to take root. And vital to this, I'm making a permaculture example of soil, because soil can be the soul of the self, the soul of the being, the psyche of the individual, or soil can be that of the culture of the organization, of the institution. And it is this soil that allows things to die, which is imperative if something new is to grow. And yet, in dying yields nutrients for a new growth at the personal and organizational level, because it's decaying matter that provides the vitality for new growth. So let the soil of us be our inner being, when we can start to envision the future on the other side of this chasm we are in. And we really have to think of a new kind of way of thinking of education, where we are thinking of redesigning, moving beyond hurting and taking, extracting, to a new regenerative approach that nourishes life, to re-establish and reconcile ourselves with the world, including with nature, with our neighborhood, with our friends. This leads to new subjects like eco-psychology and other such new words that are coming in, and rekindling of ancient wisdom, which I think was what Damant was also trying to say in trying to find out how we can actually do this. I'm very passionate about what I do. I've survived a long tenure and I'm at the end of my working life. But I am telling all of you, you've got to get up and fight for it. It's not going to just happen. AICTs will rule the world. They will remove design. Bala is right. A teacher does not need a PhD, but that does not mean Amrish is wrong. We do need knowledge. But what are you creating the knowledge about? What are you creating the knowledge about? Is it about environmental consciousness? Is it about racism and destruction? Look at the current position that we are in this city and this country today about dress codes. So we can't remove ourselves from the world. We can have these arguments. We can say we're design educators, but in the end, we're human beings living in a world that is in a dystopic time. Let's go out and make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. It was an exciting session. I know all the people are staring at me. I need to close this session. So thanks a lot, everyone. It was rushed in. We did a big experiment. We and Arvind were debating about this for a long time, that how will it go? Will we finish in time? And I think it took a bit more time. Thanks for participating in the experiment. And also thanks for being a very good audience. The polls have been done and we will publish the results a little bit later because I have to collate them. So through the 3 days, we'll publish it. So with all due respects, thanks to everyone. Thanks to Arvind. Thanks to Geeta. Thanks to all the ADI team who have supported, all the sponsors. I think let's close this session. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.